Thanks for joining me here on Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, the founder of Bare Bones Yoga. I'm a yoga teacher with over 15 years of experience, a certified personal trainer, and an entrepreneur. My mission is to help yoga teachers transform their teaching by mastering the fundamentals of anatomy. By learning anatomy in my easy step-by-step way, you'll be able to confidently share it in your cues, easily create sequences, and you'll eagerly answer student questions. And all along the way, you'll increase your impact and earning potential. On the podcast here, you will hear anatomy lessons, stories from teachers, interviews with others in the field, and a dose of personal development. Once you listen to today's episode, go ahead and visit barebonesyoga.com, my website, for free resource guides for teachers. Download any and all that are there, including one of my most popular tools, my sequence building template. And if you'd like, send me a one-line email with the answer to this question. What's your biggest frustration right now as a yoga teacher? And I'm happy to do some brainstorming with you in a free coaching session. My email address is karen@barebonesyoga.com. Thanks for taking the time to listen today. Let's get to today's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, and this is episode 170. Oh my goodness. It's February 14th, 2022. I am recording this today, Monday. It also happens to be Valentine's Day, 2/14. And I'm super excited to bring you this interview with my friend and colleague, Allison Chamberlain Jones. She has such an interesting story, and I'm just going to do a quick intro. You'll hear her introduce herself, so I'm not going to go into that. I want to kind of leave that for you to unwrap and enjoy and explore as you are listening to this episode live. I would say this is a great episode for a long walk or sit down with a cup of tea, because we do run a little bit longer. It's really, really worth it. There's two parts to my conversation with Allison. One about a really interesting personal journey she just recently was on. I mean, we're all on personal journeys, but she was really on a physical personal journey. And then we talk about the focus of her work with people, what she does, and how she helps them really make amazing shifts in their life. So there's two parts to this. So that's why it runs a little bit long. I think you're really going to love it. Alice and I have known each other for a while because she used to live up here near me in Boston and co-owned a yoga studio, and I taught the anatomy for their 200-hour programs. So that's the genesis of our connection, and we've stayed in touch even though she's moved out of Boston and is doing something a little bit different now, and I can't wait for you to hear what that is. I just want to say just a couple of things. Please, if you haven't joined me in my virtual studio, think about joining me. Matter of fact, don't think about joining me, just join me for class. You can find the schedule every week on my website, barebonesyoga.com, the virtual class page. All the classes are free and just 30 minutes because I really want it to be easy for you to show up. So I intentionally made the classes free and short so that you really have very limited reasons to not do it. Outside of course, maybe you live in a place in the world where the time the class is offered is like the middle of your night. So if you're running into that problem, I want you to please send me an email, because I have a program that has a whole bunch of recorded classes, and I'd be happy as a podcast listener to offer you a 15% discount on that program. It's called the Bare Bones Yoga Practice Portal. So if you're interested in that discount, just send me a DM on Instagram or an email, karen@barebonesyoga.com, and I will hook you up with that recorded series of classes, and you'll be all set. And then you can come to class whenever it is at a time that works for you. Other than that, I am going to be letting you all know over the next day or so about my next free monthly workshop. This is a brand new presentation about how to transform your teaching by mastering the subject of anatomy. I'm really going to give you proof of concept so that what I just said as a phrase, mastering anatomy to transform your teaching, becomes more than just a phrase. I actually prove to you how that is possible. And I can't wait to do that. That's going to be a Thursday, late afternoon, free workshop. So having said that, let's get into this interview without any further delay. I am so excited for you to meet Allison Chamberlain Jones. Here we go.
Hey, Karen.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. In snowy Boston.
It snowed yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Or is it snowing now?
Yesterday all day.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
How many inches?
Not that many. It was just kind of like lightly dusting all day, but by this morning it was probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 inches.
Okay.
Yeah. I know that you're in Florida, so you're just loving the warm.
There's no snow, but it's been cool here for like a month.
Yeah.
A lot of days where it's been like 55, cloudy, kind of rainy, like, so it hasn't exactly been like beach weather. Although there've been some like random nice days here and there, but yeah, for Florida, it's felt weird. It's felt like, are we really in Florida right now? What's going on?
Although you've lived here for a while in Boston, so you are probably just like, this is nothing.
Well, I know, but it had actually felt freezing. I feel like now I flip-flopped or something, because I now, like, after being in the warmth for like a year, then all of a sudden 55 is like, oh, get out the winter jacket and like, you know.
For sure. Well, I'm glad that you could join me today. I've been watching your Instagram posts and it's just been so intriguing. And even before what we're going to talk about today, which is your program, which I feel like you have to help me understand if it's a new program or kind of a tweaked program that you've adjusted. Even before you shared with your audience and your community what that program's about, you were taking us on a journey with you, like you were literally on a journey. And we were kind of going on the journey. And when I was watching that, and that's part of what I want you to share with the listeners today, I want to have us go through that because it's just so interesting from a whole bunch of reasons. So I thought that would be a fun reason to have you rejoin, and actually I looked back before we got on online here. The last time you were on was December 28th of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
That's
crazy.
That was episode 110. And now this episode today is episode 170. So 60 episodes later, you have made a reappearance with so much, in between having happened in your life. So having said that as a kind of a intro and hopefully for the listeners, a way to sort of get them excited about what's to come in today's chat, maybe you could start out by sharing what you're doing, what you do in general, what your focus is. How do you connect with people and how do you help them? What's your expertise?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me back on. It's an honor to be on your podcast. And yeah, I'm happy to be back. I can't believe over a year has gone by since that first time. And yeah, I've really also really enjoyed just watching you over the years and how just all of the amazing ways I feel like you've combined your passions, for things obviously like yoga and anatomy with just really admirable business practices. Like, I feel like you really blend yoga and business so well, in my opinion. So it's great. It's great to be here. And so to answer your question, I am a holistic business coach an astrologer, a yoga and meditation instructor. I typically work with and help holistic wellness or spiritual type entrepreneurs, or what I like to call wantrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs, people that might have some other job, maybe they have a kind of a 9 to 5, but they might be on the side doing something else already and wanting to scale and grow that thing so that it could become their full-time business. So I work with people in that category. I also work with people who are, full-time in whatever their kind of business of their passion or business of their dream is. But they are really wanting to revolutionize and improve the way that they relate to money, because there's just so many taboos, around money, especially for people that are kind of in the spiritual wellness, holistic, caring, helping professions. There's sort of that sticky point of like, ooh, is it bad to make money from this? Or like, am I allowed to make money from this? And I find that that really just gets in the way of them thriving and then being able to actually help even more people. And so we kind of work on really improving their overall like relationship with money, with confidence, being able to kind of to market their business in a way that feels aligned, because a lot of people in these sort of wellness sectors feel like sales is sleazy, right? So that's another area that we kind of work on. How can we flip the script on that and take the sleaze and the pushiness and all of that icky stuff out of sales and really do this in a way that feels good to you and that you feel like you're just sharing and potentially helping people and sort of spreading a message of what's possible or how you help people. And then I love to bring in like I always like to say that wealth and abundance are holistic. Like I'm sure you might know examples of people who, let's say, they have a ton of money, but they're physically not taking care of themselves, or they have a ton of money, but they're actually not happy. Or on the flip side, maybe they do a good job of kind of self-care and like prioritizing some things like that, but they're barely making it paycheck to paycheck because of whatever reason. And so it's like, I want people to feel wealthy in all ways, like an abundance of health, an abundance of feeling good in their body, an abundance of great relationships, and ample money in their bank account. And that's kind of where now I feel like in the last couple of years, in 2020 is when I added the holistic business coaching in. But now over the last 2 years, it's sort of, I've brought more yoga back kind of into the equation, because it's like, yeah, if we're not taking care of ourselves, mind, body, and spirit, what is the point?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many things that you mentioned in just sharing with us your background and your focus. And I want to dive into those. And by the same token, I want to start maybe with your journey of late, because I kind of feel like, and I don't know this, but I'm wondering if your physical journey that you've just been through somehow parallels a little bit of what you've been doing with your business, and where your business sits today and where you physically sit today versus where you were physically sitting 6 months ago or whatever the timing was. So maybe start out, I mean, we chatted a little at the beginning, you're in Florida right now. And you used to live up here by me in Boston. So you had
Yes.
moved to Florida the last time you were on the show with me. You were in Florida.
Yes.
And you had originally done that back in what, 2020?
November 2020. Yep.
November, right. Because I remember when we talked in December, you hadn't been there too long. And so maybe from that point, you had, and I think on that show, possibly you had talked about, at that point you were still co-leading your studio up here with someone up here. So maybe take us through from there, the point of, you're in Florida, you've moved from Boston, you're kind of remotely running a studio with someone who is here physically in the studio, who you used to be running it physically with as well. Take it from there to what happened and what went into your eventual decision to make it even a bigger change than just going to Florida.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so let's see. Moving to Florida was a really great thing for me in a variety of ways. And the positive side of the pandemic is, and I think this is probably something we did talk about in that last episode, but the positive side of the pandemic is it really prompted me to think about how can I, run these businesses, help people, impact people's, health, wellness, etc., through a computer. And that was something that I had always been very resistant to, there's nothing can compete with the connection of in person and all of that, which there's some truth to that. But, the pandemic really sort of forced my hand in a good way, that it was like, well, you either have to try doing things virtually or else you're not going to have a business anymore. And I found very quickly that I enjoyed a lot of the perks of doing things online, such as no longer having to sit in a car in traffic for hours and hours a day, teaching yoga here, then driving 45 minutes across town to do a private there and back again. And, all of that was eliminated. So I feel like I literally got hours of my day back. Then even with things like running a yoga 200-hour and then subsequently 300-hour yoga teacher training, which we collaborated on with you, which is amazing. There were also perks to that I kind of didn't think about when I was, sort of more anti online. The yoga studio that I co-owned had one bathroom. So in a training with 15 people during a break, it's like, oh man, everybody is waiting in line for that one bathroom. And by doing it online, it's like you have your snacks at home, you have your bathroom at home, you can take a break, easily. If you have to miss something, it's so easy to record it, watch it later. Theoretically, you could gather with people from all around the country or all around the world. And with Zoom and actually being able to see one another's faces, I felt like in every training or workshop or any kind of session that I've done since then on Zoom, we absolutely feel connected. And that sense of like bonding and camaraderie does occur. Mm-hmm. So I'll try to, long story short with that, I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but so I really quickly, I thought, wow, there's so much potential for what we can do adding this whole virtual component to our business. And I had started coaching, at that time as well in 2020, and felt like there were so many great ways that sort of overlapped with the mind-body wellness that yoga is kind of enhancing. And so I really wanted to take the business in a direction of it being overall wellness now. So not just yoga, but this is overall wellness. So yes, yoga is a part of that, but there's also coaching. There's also massage, Reiki, you know, other things like that. And I've been an astrologer for a long time too. So doing astrology readings, I think is just a fun way to kind of tap into something spiritual or just, just some other form of guidance. It's kind of fun. And yeah, and I really felt like if you want to have a pandemic proof business, growing in that way is very smart, because you can do it and not have to rely on the brick and mortar, or not have to, if there's a quarantine, it doesn't matter, because you can just, be online. And unfortunately, my former partner, we did not see eye to eye on that. And we just had different, I guess, visions for sort of how we wanted the business to go. And so that was part of the catalyst for my subsequent departure from co-owning that yoga studio. So, I had been co-owning and co-running that alongside, growing my coaching and astrology. And so once I was officially separated from that business, then it was okay, all the eggs are going into the basket now of Allison Jones coaching, astrology, and wellness. So I've been full on into that since September of 2021. And as this was all kind of happening, there were some big themes, I guess, that I was sort of contemplating or grappling with. And I'm sure you could probably relate as a, solopreneur and business owner. It's like, paying our own health insurance. Nobody else is paying that for us. Obviously prices, inflation is kind of crazy right now. Prices for things are going up there, the supply chain shortage and all of that. And I mean, I'm in my late 30s now, and the thought of like, is it even responsible to have a kid in this current world? Like, that's like a philosophical debate. But some real questions and concerns I had were like, how does an entrepreneur, have a kid now, and it's like daycare and all of that is just so crazy expensive. And my partner has some connections to the Dominican Republic because he was born there, and he was doing some real estate and some business things there. So we started exploring, maybe it doesn't make sense to live in the United States anymore. Prices just keep going up. Our dollars could stretch a lot further in some place like the Dominican Republic. And it's, the cost of having someone, let's say, help you out as sort of like a nanny is much less there. And so that all kind of seemed like would be helpful if the long-term plan kind of does go in that direction. So we literally just sort of ripped off the Band-Aid on that, and we're like, let's do it. Sold our furniture, sold our car, did not renew the lease that we had that was expiring in Florida.
Yeah, because you had moved to Florida. Was that also sort of related to, looking for a different financial environment? Because
yes,
the cost of living in Florida compared to living in Boston is cheaper.
Absolutely. That was definitely part of it too. It was like, why would I pay an arm and a leg for like a small 1-bedroom apartment in a place that is cold, which is not my preference, you know, when we could pay less and be in a climate that is more like agreeable. So that was absolutely a driving factor. Yeah.
So then you kind of go to this next phase of, okay, so now we're in Florida warm. Not only is there Dominican Republic warm, but there's also these other sort of economic and lifestyle incentives that it sounds like you were sort of attracted to, and you were thinking ahead about if you were going to start a family, some of the mechanics of doing that there might be better.
Yes. And yes, absolutely. And at the risk of I don't want to get too political or something and ruffle people's feathers, ruffle feathers, but a few things that I felt like kind of influenced me in what I would come to see as sort of a not good way, or I feel like influenced me, and then I unfortunately had to discover through like my own trial and error that it actually was not a good idea for me to move there. But some of those things were just seeing the supposed kind of glamour of all of these digital entrepreneurs, right? Like every day on social media, you're, at least I don't know about your news feeds, but it's like I'm seeing people who they've got their laptop and there's like this, idyllic palm trees in the background or something, and it's like, yes, you can work anywhere in the world, and isn't it amazing? And I just need my laptop and I can just pick up and go wherever. I kind of bought into that dream that ooh, wouldn't it be fun to just not be tied down and have that freedom where we could just go anywhere and make it happen. And then also just from all the different like news media and headlines and all of that, sometimes it's like, it just seems like the headlines are all painting a picture that the US is literally the Titanic going down, and it's like, yes, there's plenty of problems, and it's good to be aware of the problems and try to everyone do our part to try to make it the best that we can. But I think it's also easy to get swept into like, this country sucks now, I'm out of here, and then you go somewhere like a third world country that has it a lot worse, and then it kind of puts things into perspective. So that's
so let me kind of jump in there, only because I feel like I know, and for the listeners who haven't been kind of following along this journey, that it was a process for you, it sounds like, to get to these realizations. And so I kind of want to go back to where you said you ripped off the Band-Aid and you decided to just go. So in that moment, you were, and I think this is the reason I wanted you to go into this is because this is a really interesting conversation when you think about any goal that anybody that's listening is out there thinking they want. And then there's the taking the steps to do it. And the steps are the doing. There's even a step before that's in the sort of evaluating the goal to start to imagine, is this really what I want? And to kind of sort of do a little due diligence and sort of poke holes in it, kind of devil's advocate of sorts.
Yes.
And so that you're not necessarily getting to the outcome and then realizing this isn't really what I want. It's like, could you have saved yourself the heartache if you had thought it through? Sometimes no. Sometimes there's this, you have to sort of live through it. So I'd be curious, because now I feel like you're sitting in this place of knowing, if you can take yourself back to being in your body at that moment that you guys were like, yes, you were born there. Yes, there's all these forces here in the US that are kind of not great for us right now. Let's do this. And you have this energy around moving. And so that
Yes.
happened.
Yes. So, I totally agree with how you put that exactly. Sometimes, investigating a little bit more might have led to a different outcome for sure. And then sometimes it's like the only way to know is to go through it. And I would say that for me, it is the latter. I feel like nothing was going to prevent me from going. And it's, I've certainly traveled a good amount to other countries. I managed an international travel company for 7.5 years. I've definitely been to other parts of the world. I've been to less developed parts of the world. And so I really thought I knew what I was getting into. I had been to the DR 3 or 4 times. And, what I realized very quickly was once the safety net of your actual home base, once that was truly gone, that was a game changer. Like just going somewhere on vacation or maybe living somewhere just temporarily, but knowing that you have the nest, the home base, wherever, it's like then you can be free. You can kind of really enjoy the new thing because it's a novel experience. I'm cool. I'm in another culture. I'm seeing new things, but yet you kind of subconsciously or in the back of your mind know that safety net or like your home base is there when you choose to return to it. So once that was no longer part of the equation, and now we got there and it's like, okay, this is for real now. Like now it's not a drill. You are trying to live here. And a lesson that I kind of had to relearn apparently, what reminded me of something that I learned in high school economics class about the opportunity cost of time. That sure, while we might be saving some money by being there, other things take a lot longer. And so when you're doing, now you're spending more time, let's say going to the grocery store, it's taking a week to even get your internet set up. There are certain items that the grocery stores just don't have. So you're going to have to figure out something else. Having to learn a new language. I mean, I took Spanish from first grade all the way through 3 years of college, and I still had no idea what anybody was saying there, so all of those things just started to add stress on top of stress. And now I'm in a place that's not familiar. Everything is new. And I started to really see right away just some of the differences that like conveniences that we have in the United States just don't exist there. Like mail, there's no mailbox, like there's no mail, you can rent something at a grocery store and maybe have it come there, but it could take a long time. It could take 2 months to get to you. There's no Amazon. Say goodbye to that. Also the speed of the internet, even like the highest possible speed, is not the same level that we are used to here in the United States. So now that I have this 100% virtual business, that's a big problem.
Right.
So I'm trying to teach a corporate yoga class to 12 people, and I got kicked completely off the Zoom 10 different times. And it was like, no, this is not professional. I'm not going to be able to operate this way. And so I'm trying to think if I'm even answering your question.
I guess what I'm wondering is, so at what point did you you're experiencing this, you're kind of peeling back these layers of the onion in terms of living there? How long does this go on? And then what's the next? Is there like a big crisis, like where you're just like, that's it, we're going back? Or is it it's seeping into your awareness slowly?
So yeah, great question. It's funny, even leading up, like even before we actually physically got on the plane to move and fly there, it's like, if I'm really honest, my body and my intuition was screaming at me to not do this. Yeah. And at one point I even articulated out loud, like, it's like my head says go, but my heart says no. But I had kind of bought into that ideology that, like, oh, anytime you step out of your comfort zone, it's not going to be comfortable, or like leap and the net will appear, or anything worthwhile doesn't come easy, or just some of those like platitudes that we hear. And so I kind of ignored the misgivings. Like I wrote it off as just like, oh, that's fear, right. When really there was definitely some of it was intuition being like, I don't know if we really want to do this.
Is this danger that I should be reacting to, or is this my ego saying, you can't do this, you're not ready, and you need to be the bigger person to move past those self-limiting beliefs? And that's a really interesting question. I mean, I think, certainly for women in the context of personal safety, it's like always follow your intuition and always adhere to that inner voice being the thing that you should listen to, even if you're in a scenario where it's like, oh, maybe I'm just reading into it, but that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about something on a practical, pragmatic level. So yeah, so it really is an interesting question for all of us, who I don't want to put it as a wins the battle, because I don't love that paradigm, but between your head and your heart, or your wisdom versus your experience, or versus your knowledge. Yeah. So here you are, you're on the plane, you're kind of knowing, and now you're there and you're thinking back to this. So walk us through just, as we kind of get us to the point where you make a decision. At that point, were you and your partner both on board that I think this just is not working out?
So, yeah, I mean, as soon as I got there, I knew it was a mistake. But at that point, it kind of I felt like, oh my God, well, we already put in so much effort to get here that just to turn right back around, feels like, oh my God, it was all for nothing. And so I think I was internally wrestling with that, like, trying to, is it really, do I deeply know, like in my bones, that this is not right for me? And so I might as well just cut my losses and get out of here now. Or like, sort of like you were saying, is part of me just afraid because this is new and I'm out of my comfort zone, and so I need to stick it out. For how long do I need to stick it out, and but pretty much daily there was kind of like evidence upon evidence that like this was just not going to work long term. And there had been a number of hurdles even getting down there. Like we got held up for like a week because our cat needed some other paperwork. Like we were all at the airport with 4 suitcases each and the cat, and we like did not get on the plane because the cat needed something else. And then we're stranded in Miami with no car, no, everything, sold all of our furniture. Like there was a lot that happened even to like get down there. But so the kind of long story short is it was incredibly stressful, for both of us. And we, in our, relationship, definitely had some rough patches with that, because it was just such a big ordeal that it like couldn't help but impact, that. And, but luckily, ultimately, we were on the same page. And but by Christmas, I was just like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do this.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
So then you're in a position where you need to kind of rebuild something here to come back to, which it sounds like you were able to do that. And was the cat able to make it back to the States with you?
It was like another whole ordeal, but I came back first. I started looking for like a place to live and like a car, and in the grand scheme of things, I did manage to kind of lock all of that in fairly quickly. As each day was happening, it felt like forever, because it felt like I had been homeless and like out of my element for like a few months now, and like that there was just a lot of stress with that. But by mid-January, I had a place, I leased a car, I started to get some furniture in the new place and all of that. And then my partner was scheduled to come, not just a couple days after that, and bring the cat back with him. Basically the U.S. It's like the U.S. Department of Agriculture and something changed their rules as of December 1st. We didn't think to look because we hadn't been there that long. We were only there for not even 2 months. And so we didn't think, oh, maybe they've changed things, since we were there. So he's at the airport to come back to the US, gets turned away because the cat, they've changed their mind. They've changed their rules. Now only service animals can fly. So luckily there was one loophole that we found out about a little bit after that. Only on JetBlue, and it has to be a direct flight to JFK. That's the only hub. That's the only place you could enter with a non-service animal. So he ended up, rescheduling the flight. He was at the airport again, got turned away a second time because they all of a sudden decided that every animal has to be chipped, and our cat was not chipped. So he had to stay an extra night, get the cat chipped. Yay, the cat is finally here now.
That cat, talk about 9 lives. I mean, that cat, there's a metaphor here. I don't know what it is, but
I know.
There is. That cat is somehow not reincarnation, but there's some sort of symbolism. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, I think at its face, you guys both are such amazing cat owners and pet lovers because I think a lot of people would have just said, we're leaving the cat, So having said all that, you come back. Now it sounds like you are in a phase where you're able to sort of look at it a little more from a distance. Are there any things that stand out to you that you think, if someone's listening and they have a big decision that they're facing, that does involve like leaving a job or leaving a relationship or doing something that is bigger than a bread box? Like, what are some of the things that you might say from your journey should be considered?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I would still say that experience is the best teacher.
Yeah.
And as much of a pain in the ass, pardon my French, on the podcast, I don't know if I want to edit that out, but yeah.
You said the F word a couple times, or
Okay,
I think
good.
I have, or some of my
Okay.
guests have. Yeah, we even had a guest one time. She kind of went off on this whole tangent about Donald Trump, and I was just like, this is all staying in because these are conversations. This is not
Okay,
edited
perfect.
stuff. And you know what? It's all fine. It's all just people's perspective. So anyway, so go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I guess I would say, even though for me that it was an exorbitant pain in the ass that lasted like 3 months, and it was a very expensive mistake, if you want to call it a mistake, or an expensive decision, and then to reverse that decision, there were a lot of costs involved with that. And while I would love to go back and wave away those costs and those stressors and whatnot, I still think it was a valuable experience. I think there were many lessons that came out of it. I think that that's true for a lot of things in life. So my advice to someone would not be like, oh, don't do it. You know, like it wouldn't. And yeah, I think it's always important to remember, or to kind of highlight the importance of listening to your intuition, like you said, as well, and that is vital, and that is kind of your built-in compass for life, right? But that, yeah, sometimes it's like you just don't know until you know. Like you just don't know until you go through it, until you experience something. No amount of reading up, like it's kind of like imagining a pregnancy. You know, you can, in giving birth, you can read books about it, you can talk to other moms, you can gather as much, you know, kind of information as possible, but you don't really know what it's like probably until you have your own experience, right? So I feel like it's kind of a balance between, yeah, like following your intuition, following your inner guidance, and being okay with making a mistake.
Yeah.
That it, you know what, we're gonna make mistakes. Like there's going to be decisions that, you know, in hindsight, like if you could go back, maybe you would have done it differently, but that's all part of the process and like being human.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is such a perfect springboard for us, or segue for us, into talking a little bit more about what you do with entrepreneurs and just people in general. Because when you just, you know, at the beginning, when you were talking about the focus of your work with people has a lot to do with the mindset and the behaviors they have around money.
Yep.
And you were just mentioning the money it cost to do it and then undo it, what, you know, in terms of your life. And I would think that, you know, if someone had a particular mindset around money that was very restricted, there's not a lot of money, money's really hard to get, I only have a certain limited amount of money, they might have stayed in a situation like you were in for a really long period of time, with the internet going down, with the cost of that affecting their ability to make money, you know. So tell us, you know, what did it take for you to just sort of move forward with your plan to move back, and just, you know, in that initial phase, like, put it on the credit card, put it on the credit card, put it on the credit card. Yes, the rent. Yes, the car lease, or whatever, you know, sign the loan, whatever. Like, what was that like, and what was going through your head?
Yeah.
Around the money part. I mean, you don't have to get into your personal situation, but just that whole idea of, you know, having the faith that there's a bigger thing here that I am targeting to do with my life. And if in the short term, I need to invest, you
Yes.
know, a little bit more to get myself over this hump into this new scenario, it's worth it. And I'm going to,
Yes.
I don't know, I'm going to make it back at some point,
Right.
or like what goes through your head there?
Yeah, exactly. Great question. So, just like all the other kind of things that I'm into professionally, I really think it's important to look at money holistically too. And that, yeah, obviously it's important to have that kind of black and white, realistic outlook on things, like literally how much money is in your bank account right now. Like all of these things are important, yes. But you know, there are other factors that kind of come into play with regards to one's ability to make money, receive money, experience success. And it was pretty clear to me really quickly into this whole thing that if I'm a ball of anxiety and like trauma responses in the DR and I'm feeling completely helpless because when it comes to coordinating logistics there, moving to renting an apartment, getting the internet and all that, and I'm not completely speaking the language, I'm feeling totally out of my element, everything is taking longer, it's like a pilgrimage to go to the grocery store, you know, all of this stuff, that actually is going to directly impact my ability to make money and have a successful business. Because if I'm showing up to my sessions with clients and I am barely hanging on or completely stressed and like at my wit's end or whatever, that doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't mean that we have to be perfect all the time, but that will like negatively have these ripple effects, you know, into the overall longevity, health, and like growth of my business. So yes, it was like, it's absolutely worth spending the money now to get back to a baseline where I feel safe, happy. I have, you know, as a, you know, entrepreneur, it's like, it's a lot of hats, you know, that we have to wear. So, being able to order some things on Amazon makes our lives so much easier, you know, it's like, and especially as women too, it's like, there's so many things, even if I don't have kids, you know, but it's like, there's still so many things like cleaning the house, you know, food, all, you know, on top of running a business, it's like we have, you know, there's just all these things. So in the DR, I felt like I made it infinitely harder for myself.
Yeah.
And that wasn't worth the savings, the financial saving at the end of each month, you know?
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like I know in a lot of the yoga teachers that I talk to where they're feeling like they're sort of at a fork in the road and they have an opportunity to make a decision about investing in themselves. And they compare that dollar investment to all the things they're doing as a workaround to just making the investment. And it's similar to what you're describing. I mean, I think your scenario is more stark because it has to do with getting food and getting gas and getting internet. And these things are things that we need to live. I think when you look at it from the perspective of, well, like, of course, in my world, it's like, well, do I really need to master anatomy to transform my teaching? Or can I just doing all these things that I'm doing, which aren't great and aren't really getting me where I want to be, but I can just keep doing this for a while. There's a cost to that. And so I think it's interesting when we look at money behaviors and beliefs. It's like, if you're in your situation, well, geez, no prob, take out the credit card. I'm doing what I need to do because it's very clear, A or B, I want B, and I'm paying whatever it takes to get me B. If it's something else though, sometimes the urgency isn't there and we sort of feel like we can just sort of keep doing this.
Right.
Because we're just not really sure the risk of the investment in us is worth it. So having said that, I think this might now be a good springboard to talk about your program, because number one, it has a name to it that is sort of like an in your face, wake up and smell the coffee sort of thing.
Yeah.
And especially as we just talked about, using savory language on the podcast. I will just warn the listeners, if you have small kids around, close their ears, and you don't use the spelling of it in your social media posts, but it's called the Rich Bitch
Holistic Mastermind.
Holistic Mastermind. Now, when you post it, you write Rich B with then just a couple of not asterisks, but just little symbols.
Yeah.
So tell me, I want to hear about the program. I want to start though with the name. What's the energy behind that? Like, what's the genesis of that? Not so much from a branding perspective, maybe partly, but just more from the perspective of like, why is that the vibe? Like, what's in that?
Yeah. Okay. So I love that question. I'm going to answer it. And there's one thing you said before that I just wanted to like speak to for a second as well, that I love where you're going with, how do I know when it's right to invest or not? How do I know when it's right to invest in a program, in a training, in a coaching, in a this or that, right? And when it's not. And so I think that a couple of guidelines that have really helped me in that arena are things like also asking, as you alluded to, what is the cost of me not doing this, right? So if I don't participate in this, or if I don't pursue this and I keep the status quo, what am I potentially missing or giving up or foregoing? And then another helpful thing is, if you're thinking about investing in anything, it's like, how committed are you to getting what you need out of it, to ensuring that no matter what, even if the person under delivers, even if the course isn't as good as you thought it was going to be, even if there are things that you would do differently or you dislike, are you committed to still making sure there's a nugget that you're taking away? And I feel like that's the difference between, investing in something and then being like, oh my God, that was such a waste of money. Like they sucked, or it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. And it's like, that could be true. Like that could simultaneously be true. And are you willing to let it be a waste of money? Or are you like, no matter what, I'm gonna find the gold in here, And I think that's important. And then, so the name, using the name Rich Bitch, it's like, what is that? Why, does it trigger people? Yeah, it does. And I didn't set out to use that name because I was like, oh, I want to piss people off or like ruffle feathers or something. It's more that what I've found is oftentimes, in order to work on something, you might have to swing towards the other end of the spectrum in the short term to then land in the middle. And what I mean by that is, a lot of the holistic wellness, spiritual type people that I work with are totally the opposite of Rich Bitch. They are more like burnt out martyr, and they've been giving and giving because they want to help people. They have these huge hearts. They want to make a difference, but they kind of feel a little guilty about charging money, or like they're not sure what price they should be charging, or they're scared to be seen as expensive or whatever it is. And so to kind of make up for that, they're overextending themselves. They're working 6-7 days a week. They're burnt out. They're exhausted. So then I kind of, think about this archetype of the rich bitch. Like, what if you let yourself have 10% of her? The goal is not that we all become a-holes. That's not what my work is about. But it's more like, what if you actually allowed yourself to make good money from this? What would that mean? What would that say about you? Let's work on that. What would it be like if you actually allowed yourself to maybe have some help or delegate some things, or I don't know, get some support somehow, so it's not all falling on you, and that maybe you could step a little closer into that kind of confident, abundant, well-rested, like person who's pouring from that state of overflow, instead of like one little drip left in the well. And so it's like the using that terminology, rich bitches, is kind of a way just to sort of also take some of the taboo away from it, that rich doesn't automatically mean you're a bitch.
Right.
Although I think a lot of people, and I know in the past, I myself would be included in that, had that correlation. Like, rich is bad. That means you're an a-hole. That means you don't care about people. That means you had to, do something unethical to get there. And so I kind of also use that phrase as like a turn it on its head. Let's reclaim this a little bit.
Yeah. I think too, I've been binge watching Emily in Paris. I don't know if
I haven't seen that yet, but I've heard of it.
I actually oddly started watching it because Peyton Manning was joking about it on Saturday Night Live 2 weeks ago, that he missed that really great weekend in football of the final playoffs before the two teams were decided, because he was binge watching Emily in Paris season 2. So I went and watched season 1 in like 4 days. And there's a character, Emily's boss, who is a wealthy, successful marketing agency, kind of like the Meryl Streep character in the Anne Hathaway.
I literally was picturing that in my mind.
I forget what the name of that movie.
Devil Wears Prada, maybe.
Yeah, so that kind of person, that's what I think of. And when you talk about, the other avatar or archetype that is often associated with people in the yoga teaching profession or different wellness professions, where do you think that that feeling of I can't charge what I'm worth, I can't, like, where does that come from? Is it associated with the industry, or is it just random that all these people gravitate to being a yoga teacher that have this sort of, and it must not be everybody, however, is it more common with yoga teachers for some particular reason? Like what is that? I'm not really asking you to comment on the demographics as much as, is it that I don't feel that I'm worth getting paid $200 for a private versus charging $80? Like, I know a lot of the languaging I hear from teachers sometimes is I'm not experienced enough, or in my area, no one would ever charge $200 for a private. So like, is it a self-worth thing?
It's such a great question, and I love this topic. I think I would say that I think it's intersectional, and it's a little bit of a combo of factors. I think that so on the one hand, like one little spoke on the wheel of intersection or whatever could be that yoga and some of these other like healing, wellness, spiritual type endeavors attract people who kind of want to give capitalism, big business, corporations, the patriarchy the middle finger, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
And I mean, I was even thinking about it when you were talking about Amazon. I know there are a lot of people who have concerns about Amazon. Jeff Bezos doesn't pay his taxes. How cares he's going to space when we have all these things happening here in the United States that deserve our attention. So I know Amazon, talk about trigger words, Amazon and using Amazon in the wellness professions can sort of be a trigger topic because of what it represents. If we live in that world of no nuance, there's black and white, there's nothing in between. So I feel like as you're talking now about this idea that the somewhat archetypical yoga teacher might be someone who wants to sort of give the middle finger to that paradigm of capitalism and making money. And so you're saying because of that, they undercharge as a way to sort of.
That's one element. I think, and not speaking for all people, of course, like, and I don't even know, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like that's one spoke on the wheel. Yeah. Another spoke on the wheel is, it's not spiritual to make money.
Yeah. That's been out there for a while.
It has been out there.
Sort of past that.
Yeah.
But are you hearing, I mean, I know you said you don't speak for yourself, but I feel like because you are a conduit to how yoga teachers and other wellness professionals feel about this in your work with them, are these narratives that you hear from people that you work with?
All the time. All the time. So
that's still out there, that money is not spiritual, that people
money is evil. Money is, unethical or whatever. And the self-esteem part that you alluded to is definitely a piece of it too. Like, who am I to charge $200 or whatever?
Yeah.
And so there, and then a few of, I guess another little spoke on that wheel is, during the Industrial Revolution and then like shortly thereafter, a lot of people worked in factories. And so at that point in time, it was really ingrained that in order to make more money, there's only one way to do it, and it's work harder and more hours. And so that really got ingrained from the Industrial Revolution, that the only way to make money is to just work more hours. And that ideology still kind of infiltrates even how you would approach a 1 hour yoga private lesson, because your mind might go, well, it's just 1 hour. So who am I to get paid $100 an hour or $200 an hour or whatever? And it's really the way that we need to flip this and look at it is, it's not just about the hour. It's not about the hour of your time necessarily. It's what is the value of what's happening in that hour? What is the value that the recipient or the customer or the client is getting in that hour? In that hour, they might be getting a tremendous amount of stress relief. They might be going from feeling like crappy in their body to, ooh, I feel spacious, I feel stretched, I feel relaxed, I feel so much better now. Maybe they were in a bad mood, and then after that 1 hour yoga private, they're feeling really peaceful now. And like, somebody might be really happy to pay $100 or $200 for that, that transformation.
It's funny because when you think about kind of all those sayings about people who are really wealthy but miserable in their life, and then you think about that scenario juxtaposed to what you just described, there are also a lot of sayings that we hear, well, you can't put a price on happiness, you can't put a price on good health. So in a way, if I never really thought of this, but if you take that adage to its extreme, we could charge, thousands of dollars for any amount of time, because what we're doing is helping people access feeling better health, all those things that are supposedly and supposed to be priceless. you know?
Exactly.
So interesting how so let me ask you this, because we're talking about money now, specifically in the context of what a yoga teacher might charge for services.
Mhm.
We also talked about a yoga teacher who might look at money decisions around investing their own money in their own growth. What other ways are, and I don't want to just talk about it in the context of teachers, even though that's the focus of my podcast, just in general, when you work with people, what other ways are people running into resistance around their relationship with money? Like if they're in a profession where they're charging, that's definitely probably one area it shows up. If they're in at a point in their life where they want to invest in their development, but they're feeling like we talked about before, it's not a fail-safe thing, and I'm just going to make do with what I'm doing, patchwork together and see how that goes. Are there other ways that they could develop a better relationship with money, where they're right now at a point where they don't have a good relationship with money and it's showing up in different ways? What other ways is it showing up as, I mean, I think about people who maybe ignore bills, they have bills that come in and they just are like, can't deal, kind of thing. Or I don't know, are there other things that people you work with show up with as their kind of, here's my handbag of money issues, let's open it up and sort of see what's in there?
Absolutely. And it's funny, the example that you just gave, actually, yes, that I am currently working with someone who she had not opened her mail in 3 years. She was terrified of, what was going to be in there, the bills, etc. 3 years. She finally tackled it and opened everything. And although this is not necessarily typical results or something that everyone would experience, but by opening the mail, she literally made $110,000. And this is why. Because in that 3-year backlog of mail, I believe it was her father had died a number of years before, but they didn't know where to send the money that was part of his will, because they didn't know where to send it. And they kept like sending her notices about this, but it was like in the pile of bills. And that was like 70 grand. So literally when she finally opened up that, she was able to contact them and get this 70 grand that was like from her dad's will from like 6 years ago. And then I don't remember where the other 40 came from, but it was some other scenario of like some, I don't know, refund or something that she totally like just missed because she did not open the mail. And so she literally, she literally made 6 figures by confronting her fears and opening the mail. And I get it that if we all let our mail pile up for 3 years and then open it, this is not a formula that's going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
I wish it was that easy, but yeah, so it's like, so there, there are, I kind of work with people that they might be at different ends of the spectrum. Like there are some folks who are terrified to check their bank balance and they never do it, and terrified to open the mail. And then there are people at the other end where they're hitting refresh on their online banking 20 times a day because they're kind of OCD about it. And it's like, is the money just going to disappear? No, so there are a lot of things we can do to kind of self-soothe, work on getting your nervous system like back to a kind of grounded rest and digest parasympathetic state around money, so that money is not going to just send you into fight, flight, or freeze like it's done your whole life, maybe, and even things like pranayama, breath work, tapping, meditation, chakra work, I find really can help with that stuff, which is just such a cool, I love bringing all that together. let me think about so then other issues that can come up is when you're partnered and your spouse, let's say one of the people in the partnership is really risk averse. They're like, I can't believe you would spend money on that. I would never spend money that way. Blah, 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 blah. What a waste of money. Oh my God. And then the other and they don't see eye to eye. So yeah. I've worked with people on navigating that. Like, how do you kind of stay in your lane and make decisions that are right for you while honoring that you're in a partnership, and kind of where do you, and even I think even opening up the communication around money is so vital no matter what. But even having agreements that you could come to together, like if it's an expense, let's say that's going to be over $500, we talk about it first, or you come up with what feels right to you, or maybe it's to each their own, and you do what you want with your money and I'll do what I want, but have some agreement, some right. Actually talk about it so that both people can feel like, you know what, maybe I wouldn't spend my money on that course, but my wife or my husband or whoever, they feel like that's a good investment for them. And so I can, support them, even though maybe I would make a different choice, and just kind of navigating those conversations too.
Yeah, I have definitely had conversations with teachers who are women who have wanted to move forward and invest in my program, and after they talked to their husband, they came back to me and said, I'm not going to be able to do this. And you don't really want to poke and prod into their personal situation, and you do wonder, there could be some real situations that make it challenging. And by the same token, are there people who are shortchanging themselves because of some relationship dynamic, and there is maybe a different perspective on money when you look at the two partners? And they always say money is probably one of the reasons that people get divorced,
money and sex,
up
or
there,
why they
or not communicating or whatever. So tell us a little bit about how your program is structured. Like, what's it like to be in this program, and what does it look like for someone who's working with you?
And so there was one other thing that I was like, ooh. Gotta
get
in there.
I jot things down, because if I forget when I have a ooh moment,
I know they're gone. But the one other thing I was thinking, with the context of investing in a program or whatever it is, I've kind of, now I like to think of it as, it's less of a need. Like, do I need this to be good? No. Do I need this to be successful? No. I mean, do I need this to survive? Do I need this to be seen as legit? No. But it's like, I love having this be just a part of my ongoing business model and evolution as a human being. Like, I always want to leave some room for continuing education or coaching or some kind of program, not because I'm defective the way that I am, not because I need it to get a stamp of approval from somebody else. No, but just that I always want to be in that energy of stretching and growing a little bit, and to keep scanning for what's possible. And that, and so it's like, I don't know. I'm just like, what if it would be so amazing if we all kind of approached things from that framework?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And I also love when you talked earlier, you mentioned something about investing in something to just get to where you want to go faster. So it's kind of like, you've got these dual goals in mind. You've got this kind of self-improvement thread that it would be great if we all kind of fed that regularly. And then on a real practical 3D level, we've got this, here I am right now. I want to be here. I bet I could be here if I just knew A, B, and C. this
Yes.
person knows A, B, and C. Am I going to try to figure out A, B, and C on my own, or would it be faster and cheaper for me to
More
just
efficient.
spend money to have that person show me how to get from where I am now to,
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like these dual, like
It is.
self-improvement along with just the real 3D kind of tangible skill that you don't have. And I hear what you're saying about don't make it that you're deficient. And by the same token, can you step away from your ego and just like assess your skills and be like, you know what? It would really be helpful if I knew more about the stock market so I could invest $50 a month or $200 a month or whatever it is, and not feel like I'm paying some broker and I have no idea what this person's doing. So I kind of get there's these like dual mindsets in that. So having said that, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was a really good point. So is this part of like, tell us a little bit, I'm kind of just looking at the time just as we kind of wrap up here. Tell us a little bit about what is the container for this program? What does it look like?
Okay, so perfect. So I use the word mastermind because a lot of other people use that word. I feel like it's kind of a well-known word, but when I hear that word, in some ways I kind of laugh because it's like, well, do we just want to master only our minds? It's like, don't we want to master like mind, body, and spirit and all of that? And so that's kind of what I'm getting at with this holistic mastermind. And honestly, I don't really know what other people do in their masterminds, and in some ways I don't really care. And so it's like, I'm using that word and my program is what it is. But so in this opportunity, there are going to be, there are 8 sessions and they'll all be 90 minutes, but there are 8 sessions that will have a topic. And I will introduce the topic. It could be like, money manifestation and mindset is going to be the first one, for example, or magnetic marketing is another one, for example. And so these 8 sessions, we'll introduce the topic, we'll do some kind of little exercise or like work with that topic. I'll always ask if there's a volunteer, if somebody wants some on the spot coaching, they could bring up something, about it or whatever they're working on. And we can do just a little sort of on the fly, like they're in the hot seat, the magic seat coaching. There'll be maybe a little opportunity to kind of share and interact with some of the other people in the mastermind. And so there are 8 of those. And then kind of interspersed between those 8 sessions are 8 rich bitch yoga classes. So then on these kind of off weeks, it's a 90-minute yoga class that will, in addition to some asana, some actual yoga postures, right? Asana, there will be things like maybe some tapping, emotional freedom technique. There might be a little hypnosis. There might be a meditation. There might be kind of working with an affirmation or a mantra. And so it's kind of like these 90-minute yoga classes are almost like mini workshops that are all part of this. And so with the exception of one, the first session is on a Tuesday because it's February 22nd. And I just loved the 2-2-2-2 thing and was like, all right, we're going to kick it off on that day. But that's the only Tuesday. All the other ones are on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Everything's recorded. If someone had to miss one, they can go back and, do that. But so really in total, there's like 16 opportunities to gather. 8, like I said, we'll have topics. The other 8 are rich bitch yoga classes, because again, something that I learned recently that's kind of fascinating as far as the vagus nerve goes, 80% of the information. So like vagus nerve, kind of talks directly to your nervous system, right? 80% of the information flows from body to brain. And it's like, as yogis, we kind of inherently know this, or knew this, that it's like, move your muscle, change your mind, or like move your body, like free your mind, or, but I love that the science actually backs that up. And while I think masterminds and mindset work is important, it's like 20% of the equation. And that actually some really amazing change and transformation can take place when you also bring in the physical and holistic component. And so that's why I was like so excited to kind of pair yoga and some of these other modalities with this.
Yeah, and I feel like when you mentioned at the very beginning, you had mentioned you were a holistic business coach. So that holistic word to me is a great illustration, or an illustrative word to describe what you're talking about. We're not just going to get together in 8 sessions and talk about tangible money beliefs. We're also going to move the body. So we're recognizing that there's a connection, and that it is a holistic approach to kind of, would you say, improving your mindset about money?
Yes. Okay. Exactly. And a lot of the, they say that 95% of our beliefs are subconscious, and most of our subconscious beliefs were kind of installed between ages 0 and 7.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, there can be these deep-seated core beliefs around what you think you deserve, and money and confidence and all of that are really driving the bus. And you kind of are, maybe you're like, I've done the mindset work, I'm writing out all the affirmations, but like, why isn't it changing? And it's like, maybe because some modalities that are actually going to kind of reset your nervous system, drop you out of that constant fight or flight, get the baseline back down to a more balanced place, so that, when you aren't kind of secretly freaking out on the inside when it comes to invoicing someone or whatever, it's like a lot of the transformation can happen kind of from the ground up, if
Right.
you will. Like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I love the 22222. That's on my I'm a big numbers person. If I see 11 on my phone, I stop and make a wish and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's 222 right now.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
That is really weird.
Holy crap.
That is really weird. That is so weird.
I'm so glad we noticed that. What?
That I just said that date, and that is the time.
Boom, 222.
That is like a message.
Whoa.
Wow.
I know.
Well, having said that, tell people, since your program is starting on 222, which I'm recording this, today is February 14th. I should know that, Valentine's Day. They've got time to apply. So for people who are listening, this will go live tonight, February 14th.
Nice.
And it will be up and running, probably for a period of time that people will be listening before 222. So how is it like an application process? Is it a direct enrollment process? Where do they go for the link, or do they DM you on IG? What's the process?
Yeah, if they can, if my website is just my name, it's AllisonChamberlainJones.com. And then there's a tab that says Mastermind. So they could click on that and they could just directly enroll. When that happens, I do send folks an email, like if I don't know them, to kind of get a sense, make sure everything seems like it's a good fit, and then we're good to go. I don't have an application because I found that most of the people who do sign up, we know each other to at least some degree. But if we don't know each other at all, you're totally still welcome. You can, I am on Instagram Allison.Chamberlain.Jones. You can definitely send me a message and ask a question that way too. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really that they can have direct access to enrolling just by going to your website. Okay, got
That's
it.
right.
And it starts 2/22. Okay, fabulous. So, all right. So this is actually great because we've got like 5 minutes, we'll kind of end on a hour, half hour mark there. So tell us, since we've talked about the program, we talked about lessons from your move, maybe, I'm thinking about that example you shared of the woman who hadn't opened her mail, and I don't even want to say that's an extreme example. I mean, who knows what folks are dealing with when you have fear and you're in denial. I mean, there's all sorts of different things. I mean, I always think of nurses who smoke and work on cancer wards. I mean, I know from having worked in direct healthcare, that was the
That's right.
and you were like, how are you out on a smoke break when you work with cancer patients? So I guess what I'm thinking is, to wrap things up, if someone is out there and they're feeling fear, maybe they don't even know they're feeling fear, they just have kind of around them the signs of things are not being managed well, and they sort of know it because they can see it, and I'm talking about money here. So whether it's that pile of mail, or they're getting these late notices from people, or maybe it's not about bills, maybe it's that they are running around, like you described before, teaching yoga classes in person for free, or maybe they're teaching privates for $50 a private. And I'm sorry, I don't really know where you would live that $50 for a private session would be a reasonable amount of money, even if you're brand new as a yoga teacher.
Agreed.
So whatever, for people who are listening to this, whatever is kind of like, well, I'm sort of doing that, like maybe I should change around that. What is maybe something they could do? I know they're all different scenarios, but is there something that's like a first step? Is it, I would even say maybe a first step is just to DM you on Instagram and say, hey, here's my situation. What do you think? Just to get that outside perspective. Short of that, is there something that you have your students do in this program to kind of work through fears that they have, or they see a particular symptom and they're like told to do a particular technique? Like what would you say?
Yeah, great question. So they could definitely DM me. That's always an option. If they think they would potentially be interested in some kind of coaching, I do offer a free hour like discovery call. They could do that. An exercise that I think that I always recommend as being a really great place to start, there's 2 parts to it. The first part is writing out your money story. So anything and everything that you've ever been told or think or thought about money. What kind of message did you hear from your parents? What kind of message did you hear in the town that you grew up in, the peer group that you were in school? And then kind of up to the present day, like what are you telling yourself about money? What does it mean? What does it mean if you have a lot of it? Even just doing a brain dump, I find, can be really eye-opening. If you start with the word money and then you just write out any other words that come to your mind, or you start with the word rich and then you write any other words that come to your mind. And often when I ask people to do this, it could be a mixed bag. Sometimes the free association words are like freedom, choice, blah, blah, blah. But often there's other words like evil, greedy, bad, this or that, associated with it. So you kind of get your whole money story down on paper. Like, what am I telling myself about all of this and like what it means? And then after you kind of do that first part, the second part is now to write out, well, what kind of relationship do I want to have with money? What's my money ideal? Do I really want, at the end of the day, do I really want to associate money with evil? Is that doing me any good? Is that really benefiting my life? Probably not. right? So then writing out, how do you want to think, feel, behave, and act around money? Do you want to feel like money loves you? Do you want to feel like money flows to you easily? Or do you want to feel like money means you're a bad girl, naughty and shit? So then that can really be a helpful exercise to start to move the needle from the default, the kind of crappy programming that a lot of us had installed, into now a more empowered sort of lens, and like really seeing all of the beneficial ways that you could relate to money. And that can just be such a huge game changer, because if you kind of have any of these negative associations with money, why would you want to have a lot of it? Because if you have a lot of it, it's just going to confirm those deep-seated beliefs that you have, that money is bad and that therefore you are bad. So then you kind of keep yourself, stuck, or keep yourself at a level of just getting by, because you don't want to be the bad things that you associated with money. So if we can kind of clear up that junk and then really paint the picture of like, how could you and money work really well together? So that, I think that's a great place to start.
Great. That's awesome. All right. Well, 90 minutes on the dot. Look at us. Chatting away.
You did it.
This was so much fun. I feel like I got some of my questions answered too about money, and so I just find it to be so valuable, such an important topic, and something that people don't often talk about for all the reasons that we shared. It's sort of not a topic people are comfortable oftentimes talking about. So I think it's really important to bring it out in the open and kind of demystifying it and destigmatizing it, so that people are like, hey, we're talking about money, no big deal, and you are happy. Yeah. So thank you so much. It was great to connect.
Thank you.
And
thanks for having me, Karen.
Of course. I always find these to be lively, spirited discussions, and I really am sure that people will really find it valuable. And you're doing such great, important work, helping people kind of connect to their value, connect to their service that they're providing, and helping them really build sustainable lives for themselves. So that is just really good work that you're doing in the world. So
thank you. That's my goal. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can stay on. I'm going to end the recording, and then we'll chat a little bit after. All right.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks again.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to that episode. Before you go, I want to let you know about a new mini course I just created as of October 2021. It's called the Yoga Anatomy Blueprint Learning Program mini course. It's essentially an introductory version to my signature program that teaches you anatomy so that you grow your confidence in sharing cues and sequences and in all those conversations you have with your students. If you're like some of the yoga teachers I speak to, you might feel as if you don't have the time to do my full program. That's one of the main reasons I created this mini course, which will give you all the same steps in my signature blueprint approach to teaching you anatomy and will allow you to complete it in much less time. There are 10 modules each of about 10 minutes each, and the entire program walks you through mini lessons from the larger program. You'll leave with specific new skills that you can start to use right away. You may also leave with a keen interest in enrolling in the larger program because your curiosity and confidence have been stoked. For you, the podcast listener, I'm offering $5 off the purchase price of the mini program, which is just priced at $27, so the cost will go down to $22 for you. Once you complete the mini course, you'll see in the next steps section how to get a $50 credit to put towards the larger program should you decide to invest in that in the future. To purchase the mini program, visit my website at barebonesyoga.com, click the link for online courses, and select the mini course link. When you check out, before you enter your credit card, enter the code podcast, and you will receive the $5 off. I hope you enjoy the program. I hope it stokes your curiosity and builds your confidence. Namaste.